The cargo ship Bluefinch had just returned from a deep space mission. It was a long and boring job, full of hauling mining equipment and empty crates. Most of the crew were rough men who joked too hard and drank too much. Among them was a quiet man named Ethan. Ethan wasn't like the others. He fixed machines, kept to himself, and never laughed at the cruel jokes others liked to play. He had kind eyes and a calm voice. Most of the crew thought he was strange, but he didn't care. He just wanted peace. On the last day of the job, the crew gathered in the docking bay. They had a surprise for Ethan. One of them, a man named Kyle, slapped him on the back and grinned. "We got you a gift, Ethan," Kyle said. "A real one. You're always so quiet and lonely, figured you needed company." Ethan looked at the large metal box they wheeled out. It was dirty and had strange writing on the side. When the lid opened, he took a step back. Inside was a small alien woman. She was thin, weak, and covered in bruises. Her skin was pale grey, and her hair was white and tangled. She didn't speak. She didn't even look up. Her wrists and ankles were tied with metal cuffs. "She's a slave," Kyle said. "Picked her up at the last station. Worthless to us. But maybe you can fix her, machineman." The other men laughed. Ethan didn't. He looked at the alien girl, then back at the crew. "This is not funny," he said quietly. "Oh, come on," one shouted. "She's useless. Can't even talk. Just sits there like a broken doll." Ethan knelt beside her. She flinched but didn't resist. Her eyes were dull and lifeless, as if she had given up long ago. "What's her name?" Ethan asked. "Who knows?" Kyle shrugged. "Didn't come with one." The crew walked off, still laughing. The docking bay emptied, leaving Ethan alone with the alien. He looked at her carefully. She had old scars, and her bones showed through her thin arms. Her feet were bare and bruised. She was shaking slightly. Ethan sighed. He wasn't angry, just sad. He stood up and gently reached for her chains. She flinched again, expecting pain. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "Let's get you out of here." He carried her to his small room on the lower level of the ship. It was quiet and warm. There was a soft bed in the corner and a clean bathroom. He placed her gently on the bed and sat beside her. She didn't move. She still looked at the floor. Ethan got up and started boiling water. He crushed some herbs into a bowl and set out clean bandages. He had learned a lot about medicine during his time on ships. Injuries, burns, infections. He had treated them all. "Let me help," he said. He cut the cuffs off her wrists and ankles. They had left deep marks. He cleaned them slowly, not wanting to scare her. She winced but didn't cry. He wrapped the wounds in soft cloth. He brought her warm soup, but she didn't eat. She just stared at the wall. He didn't push her. He just left the bowl by her side and sat quietly. Every day after that, Ethan checked her wounds, gave her food, and talked to her in a calm voice. At first, she didn't respond. Days passed, and she stayed silent. But she stopped flinching when he came near. On the 6th day, he found her sitting up. She was holding the spoon, trying to eat. Her hands shook, but she was trying. Ethan smiled. "That's good," he said. "Take your time." She looked at him for the first time then, just for a moment. Her eyes were large and violet. There was pain in them and fear, but also a tiny spark, just a tiny one of hope. "What's your name?" he asked again. She looked down, her lips moved a little, but no sound came out. Still, it was the first sign that she had a voice. You don't have to speak yet, Ethan said. We'll wait. That night, he gave her a soft blanket and dimmed the lights. As he turned to leave, he heard something. A whisper, Lyra. He turned back. She was staring at him. My name is Lyra, she said, very softly. Ethan smiled. Lyra, that's a beautiful name. She closed her eyes and pulled the blanket closer. For the first time since he had met her, she looked like she might sleep without fear. Ethan sat by the door and kept watch. He didn't know what had happened to her in the past, but he knew what he wanted to give her now, a safe place, a warm home, and a choice to be free. Jake knelt down beside her. She didn't react. Her breathing was shallow, and she was shivering. He picked her up gently and carried her to his small quarters. He had a spare cot, a first aid kit, and a small heater. He laid her down and wrapped her in a blanket. He cleaned her wounds with care. Her body flinched at the touch, but she didn't make a sound. He spoke softly to her, not expecting an answer. You're safe now, he said. I won't hurt you. He gave her water. She drank slowly. Then he gave her soup. She took a few spoonfuls before falling asleep. He stayed by her side that night. Over the next few days, Jake kept taking care of her. He didn't ask questions. He didn't expect thanks. He just gave her food, rest, and kindness. She still didn't talk. She still didn't look at him. But she stopped flinching when he came close. On the fourth day, he heard a sound, a soft voice. He turned and saw her looking at him. My name is Lasari, she said. He smiled. I'm Jake. She looked away. Why are you helping me? Because no one else did, he said. After that, things began to change. Lasari started. Sitting up on her own, she moved slowly, like her body was made of pain. But she was trying. Jake gave her space, but he stayed nearby. She began asking small questions. What is this place? A repair bay. I fix things here. You live alone. I do now. She asked more each day. He answered all of them. One day she stood up. Her legs shook, but she stayed standing. Jake smiled. That's a good sign. I want to help, she said. He brought her an old power core. It was heavy and broken. He showed her how to open the casing, how to check the wires. She watched closely. Her hands were unsteady, but she followed his steps. In the days that followed, they worked together. Slowly, piece by piece, she helped him fix things. She asked questions about the machines. She learned quickly. Jake didn't ask about her past. She didn't talk about it. But sometimes she would stop working and stare at the wall. Her hands would tremble. Her eyes would fill with tears. He didn't say anything when it happened. He just waited. Then, one evening, while they were fixing a drone, she said, "They hurt my sister." Jake paused. "I'm sorry. She was younger than me. We were taken together. They killed her when she tried to fight." Jake didn't know what to say, so he just said, "You're not alone now." Lasari looked at him. "Why do you care?" He thought for a moment. "Because everyone deserves someone who cares." She was quiet for a long time. That night, she didn't sleep on the cot. She sat on the floor beside his chair. She didn't speak, but she didn't look afraid anymore. Later, while Jake worked on a broken water recycler, Lasari brought him a tool without being asked. He looked at her and smiled. "You're getting good at this." "I remember some things," she said. "Before everything went dark. My mother was a maker. She built machines too. You take after her then, Jake said. Lasari smiled. Just a little, but it was real. Jake knew there was still a long road ahead. She had scars that wouldn't heal overnight, but she was trying, and that meant everything. He never asked for her to be brought into his life, but now he couldn't imagine it without her. He didn't see her as a joke, or a gift, or a burden. He saw her as someone who had been broken and was now beginning to heal, and maybe, just maybe, they could help each other become whole again. Lasari started waking earlier than Jake. She would sit quietly on the floor, watching the light come in through the small window. Her posture was still tense, but her eyes had changed. They no longer looked lost. There was a spark there now. One morning, she said, "I want to learn more. Not just fixing machines. I want to understand this place. The people, everything." Jake nodded. "We can start today. I'll show you the market deck." The market deck was busy. Crowds moved between stalls. Vendors shouted about prices, and all kinds of beings traded things from across the stars. Lasari stayed close to Jake. Her shoulders were stiff, but she didn't hide. Jake introduced her to a kind old vendor named Nora, who sold spare parts. Nora smiled and said, "So this is your helper, Jake. About time you brought someone with a sharp mind." Lasari gave a small bow. Jake was proud of her. Back in the repair bay, Jake showed her how to read simple signs and use the stations. Basic data console. At first, the symbols confused her, but she kept trying. She wrote down new words and their meanings. Jake found a small notebook and gave it to her. By the end of the week, she was reading simple sentences. One afternoon, while working on a broken drone, she suddenly asked, "Why did they hate us so much?" Jake looked up. "The ones who hurt you," she nodded. "I think some people fear what they don't understand," he said, "and some just enjoy power over others. But not everyone is like that." She thought for a moment. Then she said, "You're not like that." Jake smiled. "I try not to be." They worked in silence for a while. Then Lasari spoke again. "Want to build something new, not just fix broken things." Jake's eyes lit up. "What do you have in mind?" "I don't know yet, but I want to create. My mother said, building something is how we leave a piece of our heart in the world." Jake nodded. "Then let's start small. Pick a project. I'll help." She smiled, a full, warm smile. First they found an old service bot that had been left in storage for years. Its limbs were missing, and its core was almost dead. Lisa studied it carefully, then drew a plan in her notebook. They worked side by side. Jake guided her, but let her take the lead. She soldered wires, replaced circuits, and wrote simple code. It was hard, and she made mistakes. But she didn't give up. A week later, the bot stood up on shaky legs. It blinked its single eye and made a cheerful beep. Lasari laughed. It was a soft, surprised sound, but it was real. Jake laughed with her. "You did it," she nodded. "We did it together." That night, she looked at the bot, then at Jake. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." Jake looked at her and said, "You never gave up on yourself. I just gave you the space to remember who you were." She reached out and touched his hand. "Then let's build more. For others, for those still lost." And in that moment, they weren't just fixing machines anymore. They were building something far stronger. A bond, a purpose, and maybe even a future. The next day, Lasari found something strange in the storage bay. It was a metal box covered in dust and locked tight. She brought it to Jake. He examined it. This is old, military grade. Might be a relic from the last war. She opened it carefully. Inside were parts of a warrior suit damaged, but still holding some power. Her fingers shook as she touched the symbols etched into the armor. "This is from my people," she said quietly. "This is real." Jake helped her clean the pieces. Some were cracked, others were burnt, but together they managed to restore parts of it. He created a display stand in the corner of the workshop. Lissari stood in front of it for a long time. "I was trained to wear this before they broke us," Jake said. "Then maybe it's time to remember who you were before they tried to erase you." She nodded slowly. "I want to reclaim that part of me," Jake added, "not just the warrior. The builder, the protector." She began training again. Each morning she stretched and moved through old forms she had learned as a child. Jake watched from a distance. He respected the space she needed. One morning she surprised him. She brought him a blueprint. It was a design for a new kind of shielder mix of her people's tech and human parts. "I want to build this," she said. He studied it. "We'll need help, and parts that aren't easy to find. I'm ready to talk to others. I'm ready to be seen." Jake smiled. "Then let's do it. Together." Lissari and Jake began to visit more parts of the station. She walked with her head held higher. Some still stared, but she no longer shrank from their eyes. Instead, she asked questions, made trades, and even helped fix a broken cargo lifter. On the market deck, news spread quietly. The strange girl with purple skin, once seen as broken, now helped others, and people noticed. One by one, others started coming to Jake's Bay with small machines, seeking help or advice. Lissari always greeted them first. One evening, a boy came in with a broken drone. He was scared. His hands trembled. Lissari knelt beside him and said, gently, "I used to be afraid to, but it gets better. Let's fix this together." Jake watched her with quiet pride. She had come far, not just in skill, but in heart. But peace never lasted long on Orion's edge. One night, a message came through the system. The same mercenaries who once gave her away were returning. They were scheduled to dock in 2 days. Lissari stood frozen. When she heard, "It's them," she whispered. Jake looked at her. "We'll face them. You're not the same person anymore." She nodded, her hands tight at her sides. "I won't run, not again." The next day passed slowly. Jake and Lissari prepared the workshop. They moved the most important tools and sensitive items to a hidden storage room. They reinforced the front doors and added security locks. Lissari also placed the restored warrior suit near the entrance as a reminder. She still couldn't wear it. Wasn't fully functional, but it gave her strength just to see it. Jake made sure his stun tool was charged. It wasn't a weapon, but it could buy them time if things got bad. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. Lissari nodded. "They need to see I'm not afraid anymore." When the mercenaries arrived, they brought noise and arrogance with them. The same 3 aliens walked into the station's market deck, laughing and pushing others aside. Jake and Lissari stood near the repair bay, waiting. Her hands were steady, her eyes sharp. It didn't take long for the leader to notice her. Well, he said, stepping closer. "Look who survived. I thought you'd be long dead by now." Lissari didn't flinch. "I'm not yours, not anymore," he laughed. "You were never more than scrap. And now you're standing here, pretending to matter." Jake stepped forward. "She's more than you'll ever be." The alien turned to him, scowling. You still fixing junk, human? I fix what's worth saving, Jake said. The alien's smile faded. You think you're brave. Maybe you need a reminder of how small you really are. He reached for a weapon, but before he could draw it, Lasari stepped between them. No, she said. Her voice was calm. I'm not the same girl you threw away. He froze for a second. Then he laughed again, louder. You think you scare me? Lasari didn't answer. She pulled a small device from her belt, the new shield unit she and Jake had built. With a soft hum, a glowing field surrounded her. The alien raised his weapon. A pulse of energy shot toward her. The shield flared, absorbing the impact. Gasps filled the market. People began to gather. Enough, Lasari said. Leave, now. The alien looked around and saw the crowd. Traders, mechanics, station workers. They weren't armed, but they were watching. Jake stepped beside her. You heard her. For a moment, the alien hesitated. Then he sneered and backed away. Not worth it, he muttered. This station's gone soft. The three mercenaries turned and left. No fight, no more words. The silence that followed was deep. Then someone in the crowd clapped. Another joined. Soon, the whole market deck echoed with applause. Lissette's shield faded. She looked at Jake. They didn't fight back, she said softly. They saw you weren't afraid, Jake said, and that was enough. Back in the workshop, she sat beside the display stand with the old warrior suit. I was afraid they'd break me again, she said. They can't, Jake replied. Not anymore, she nodded. I want to help more people. Like you helped me. There are others like me. Lost, afraid, hurt. Then we'll find them, Jake said. Fix what we can, together. The next morning, Lasari added something. New to the workshop, a sign above the door. It read, Rebuild and Rise. From that day on, the small repair bay was no longer just a place to fix machines. It became a home for the broken, a place for second chances, a place where healing began. And as for Lasari, she was no longer a slave, no longer a victim. She was family.